to go. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back. It is Friday. I don't know if you guys are at work. Did you play hooky and cut work? Who knows? But we do have a special guest on as always. What I did tell you for everybody that is new here, this is Black Expat Life Abroad. My name is RJ. We do our best to help prepare those people that are looking to move abroad by bringing them the resources that they need. So, all of the destinations, the cost of living, how to actually go about preparing to move abroad, as well as the things that you might have forgot running out of the burning house that is America. So, today we have not Miss Khori Hooks on, and not only is she going to be able to give you guys some understanding of how she will help you in your journey to move abroad, but we're going to get into some real conversations, man. I am starting to get more people contacting me about leaving America, what that looks like, and the reasons why leads to this conversation. So many people are either at the retirement age or starting to look in the next 30 to 40 years and what could retirement look like, and the options are looking bleak in the United States, and more people are seeing the opportunity to move abroad to actually build wealth. So, without further ado, thank you so much, Miss Khori, for being on with us today. How you doing out there in Philly?
I am doing well, not as warm as you, but feeling good nonetheless.
Nah, that's real. We were on the phone earlier, and I was in the middle of trying to get back home, and it is literally 90 degrees outside. So, if you are looking somewhere and you are living where it is cold, know that the other side of the TSA has opportunities for you to have weather that is great all year round, whether that's 90-degree weather, whether that's 75-degree weather. These things are abundant in many areas outside of the US. But let's get into it because I want my people to know who it is that you are. I think they trust me enough to bring in the resources that they need to move abroad. Anybody that I bring on my platform is designed to help ease the pains that so many people are going in and the challenges of moving abroad, leaving America. Can you tell them who you are? And we know why you're here, but tell them why you're here.
I am here because oftentimes when we put together a plan, we don't always have the resources available to us to make the right decisions, the best decisions for us as it relates to our overall goal that we want to accomplish. So yes, while we want to move abroad for whatever reason that is, there are other factors that we need to consider if we're looking to move abroad, such as like RJ mentioned, how am I going to retire properly? What does that look like on the tax side of things, right? How am I secured financially as I look to one, protect myself, but also protect my financial future? All right.
So Corey, what led you to get into finance? We talk to us. This is Black Expat Life Abroad, so I talk to my people. We do our best to speak to them in the way where we understand. And I know growing up in Philadelphia, even going to some of the best schools in the country, it was not necessarily financial information that was abundantly available growing up. And now I have so many people like yourself that look like me that are in finance helping others in the community try to navigate what the opportunities with wealth management looks like.
Yep. Yep. So, I mean, I think that's the reason, right? Like we're starting to now understand the importance of financial literacy and the correlation to overall quality of life from that standpoint. And I think that's another reason why a lot of people are looking to move abroad, right? How do I capture the income that I receive on the US side, right? And move to somewhere where my costs can be lower, but I can still live a quality life. And I think that's honestly, a great idea if you're able to take advantage of it properly. And
Mhm.
obviously, I think that when you have people from a similar background, then you be able to explain how that works. It kind of eases the tension because now you realize that one, it's possible, but two, now you're in a position where you can actually understand it and take advantage of the information so that you can now implement it. Right. One of my favorite mentors, she shared with me that, education without implementation is useless. So a lot of times we're faced with a lot of education, but if we're not able to properly implement it, I mean, it's not going to do us any good, right? So that's why I think it's extremely important. I'm glad that we're seeing an increase of African Americans within the financial world, so that we're not inundated by false information. But we
Mhm.
do have those around us who we can trust to guide us as we make this transition.
No, seriously, representation in these opportunities is really key, for certain. And thinking about what you mentioned with the finance piece, I say that is because we know what making ends meet means. And growing up, not saying that everybody had the exact same life, but some of us know what that is like. And looking even now, where so many Americans, Black Americans, are making, quote unquote, on paper, more money than their parents and their grandparents have, yet are still seeing some very tight basic need things. And when we look at moving abroad, I was on with Will in Panama yesterday, and he said so many people ask, well, what did you give up by leaving America? And it's just like, well, actually, what did we gain? We have access to things that we think are a luxury in the United States, and it comes as a basic living expense, not like living expense, but basic necessity. So healthcare, the cost of healthcare, things are all tied up in
Absolutely.
the basic needs. You need a house, you need to be able to get medicine if you get sick, you need to be able to eat. And these three things are really becoming premiums. Can I afford to live in a safe environment? Can I afford to eat good food? Can I afford to get sick and then get better? Never mind having enough to put away for a rainy day, put my kids through college or school, or have a legit retirement plan.
Yeah.
My father is has been an entrepreneur, I would say, the last 25 plus years. My stepmother and my mother were both teachers in the Philadelphia school district. What I will tell you, especially from the entrepreneur side, and depending on where you are, if you're a person that's retiring or looking to retire, you may have already started to look at what they're going to give you should you retire. And looking at what you spend and need to have each month versus, well, 1,700, 2,500. These are the numbers that people are starting to get. Whereas if I stopped working, this is how much monthly is going to come in. And learning that, or not even learning, but knowing that that is not going to cut it. So I'm starting to see more people approaching this move abroad almost as a necessity, not
Mm,
necessarily an option, because of once you open the door with how much things cost, it never
yeah.
goes away. They're never going to get reset. And I think a lot of people are looking at the negative side of, well, I need to leave because it costs a lot. But I brought Corey on here to talk about the positive side, because once you free up some money, talk to me about some of these things that you could see somebody having an extra $2,000 to $3,000 a month, or $2,000 a month, that can help you prepare them for retirement or building towards something.
Yeah. RJ, I actually want to rewind a bit, right? So you mentioned that you were on a call with Will from Panama, because before we start to talk about the amount of money we have to figure out where the money's coming from, right? And I think we discussed this before. So for Will, in his case, where you mentioned, he has access to what we would consider as luxuries here, but they cost lower there, and it's a normal, kind of way of life in Panama. Where does his income come from? Does his income come from America, or does his income come from Panama?
Mm. I will tell you that most of these people that we are talking to have incomes coming from America. So either they are actively in the United States workforce, just working remote, or they
Yeah.
are pensioners that are coming from the US and have a lifetime pension coming in.
Perfect. And the reason why I mentioned that, RJ, is because it's important to understand that when we move abroad, the same societal factors that we face here in America are similar, when it comes to living abroad, right? So if their expenses are lower, that likely means that their income is also going to be lower. So if you plan to move abroad and you plan to, receive the income that correlates to, that particular society, now yes, the numbers are different, right? But the
Hmm.
structure and the way that things are set up, you're going to face those same pressures. So the real key is to continue to make income from America, right? And then have your expenses be lower in these other countries. So that's when you'll have that excess that you mentioned earlier, RJ.
That's a big fact. I don't think a lot of people are realizing that, Corey, because you see it, even if you're not looking to move abroad, it's just hard to not to miss anymore. People are asking, what jobs can I get abroad? And what I tell people in America is there are two big elephants in the room for Americans that they don't realize are actually weapons. One, your US passport. In America, you having a U.S. passport does nothing for you. It guarantees you nothing. It does nothing. You just have it. It's not until you go and use it, leave and book a ticket where you have a visa-free access to over 180 countries. It is
Yeah,
also power to earn the U.S. dollar. We in America feel the financial restraints because of the cost of everything while we're earning the US
there you
dollar.
go.
Yet when you
Yep,
move abroad, you do not have those same things because things don't cost as much. So when looking and saying, well, I'm moving abroad, don't give up your weapons. Your weapons are your US passport, the
there
visa
you
free
go.
access. Your weapons are the ability to make US dollars because if 30,000 won't cut it in the United States, it will more than cut it in many of other places like some of the
There you
visas are
go.
$1,000 a month. You have to show that you make $1,000 a month. That's 12,000 USD annual. But that over in a place like Colombia can afford you house, home, food, a normal life versus in the United States, that same 12,000 does nothing for you and could have you
Yep,
in a shelter. So you bring up
yep,
a very good point about, making sure that these people understand what your weapons are. US dollars, take it with you. Take your passport and take your US dollar ability to make money or your pension and move with it. Don't give it up.
yep. Perfect, perfect. And you also mentioned the difference between those who are preparing for retirement and those who are in retirement. So for those who are preparing for retirement, like you mentioned, you can have those years where you're only making 12,000 or what we would consider a low income in America during that time. And yes, you can use that money to live your livelihood, but now you'll have that excess that you'll now be able to invest with. So the question is, how do you
Hmm.
invest if you're living abroad, right? Well, you want to be careful of the markets that you use to make your investments because depending on the markets that you use, that'll determine your tax consequence on that end. I do recommend that you continue to utilize the U.S. Market system. Again, you can still invest internationally. That does not restrict you in terms of where you are able to invest. But we do know that America has one of the strongest market platforms, so that will kind of keep you secure on that end. But you'll still have the ability to invest, internationally within the U.S. markets or kind of wherever you're looking to invest on that end. Yep. And
Hmm.
for those who are in retirement, obviously, we know that, depending on how much money you're receiving throughout retirement, that quality of life in retirement could obviously be increased because with those limited funds that you're receiving, you're not having to decrease your quality of life in retirement. You can almost even increase it depending on how much you're receiving, and utilize that amount, like you said, those American dollars to create that way of life that you want for yourself. So,
Exactly. Getting your finances in order is something that may seem extremely daunting in the United States. And I tell people when you get the opportunity to move abroad, it hits you all like a ton of bricks that you don't have this weight on you that you didn't realize had been living on your life. And as you get to start to settle in, once your bags are unpacked, you start to think about these things, like, okay, now I'm not spending $5,000 a month. And I've got an extra X amount of dollars saved or freed up, and you have the ability, never mind just money things, you have the ability to remember what your hobbies are. Go ahead.
all right, I want to add the question is, see, people assume, and I was having this conversation earlier. People assume that because they are making more money, that they'll make better financial decisions. That is not the case, right? So you have to take that mindset with you to say, hey, if I'm making $30,000 in the US and I move to another country and My cost of living is only $12,000 a year, and now I've got this extra $18,000. Now, am I going to start to live a life of luxury now, right? Today? Or do I take advantage of that and prepare myself for the future? So a lot of that has to do with mindset, not just the
Mm.
numbers game. A lot of people don't know how to have money, right? And just the truth of it all, right? Because if I see my savings account has $10,000 and so on, great, I'm good to go. But now, how do we get to that 100,000 to help us get to the 500,000 and get to the million? We'll never get there if you don't know how to accumulate and save what it is that you're growing. If you're always consuming and not actually building. So I definitely wanted to throw that out there because as you begin to have more discretionary income, you want to make sure that you are properly putting it in the places that are going to help you live a better quality life. And also think about that generational wealth planning. We still want to continue to build while we're taking advantage of this opportunity. We don't want to say, hey, I've got extra money. Now I get to just go ahead and, do all of the things that I wanted to do before today and still not have the benefits of, well, that long term gain that we could have set prepared ourselves for.
That's real. That
Yeah.
let me ask you because it makes me want to know from somebody that's watching this perspective, if they were to like reach out to you, like what kind of conversations are you having with the person that this this is either one, they came into some money, or two, now their finances are lower, but they need to get their mindset together around this because that's what a lot of what it is that we talk about. I try to prepare people before they buy a ticket, before they leave the United States, getting into the right mindset of moving abroad. So you bring up a very, very good point, but my question is the how. How what do you do?
Good question. So first, we are always looking at risk management, right? Because if anybody is an adult, I'm sure we've had things come up in our lives that we just were not prepared for. So what does that look like? That's going to start with our emergency savings. So before we begin to lock up any money in investments, we're talking about retirement or these other long-term goals. If we have children, we want to invest for them. The last thing we want is for an emergency to pop up, right? Especially if we're living abroad or wherever we are, and now we've got to take away from our future to fulfill this emergency today, right? So your
Mm,
emergency savings should protect whatever investment strategy we put together, because that should be your cushion before you have to access any other funds. Okay, so emergency savings is always the first. We usually recommend about 3 to 6 months of your living expenses to have in
okay.
just liquid money, not invested. We could get a small interest rate. Like you could use the high yield savings accounts or money market accounts, and we can get some growth there, but we don't want it too tied up, is what we call it.
Yep.
Okay. From there, we start to look at a person's financial goals. And depending on the person, that could vary. Some people, are again more focused on building wealth for their children, and making sure that that child has enough, income or kind of cash reserves when they turn 18 or 21. Others are more focused on their own retirement planning. So that's what they want to, kind of put their excess funds into and kind of build that nest egg up. So it depends on the client as
Yep.
to what strategy will we use, because that'll also tell us our time horizon. See, a lot of people do invest, but they don't have a time horizon, right? So the
Mm,
question is, when do you take that money out of your investments? When it's high? Oh, ideally, I want my investments to grow, but what if I take my money out, when, I invested at $15 a stock, it grew up to $30. Okay, I made double the amount of money, and then a few years later, it quadruples, right? But
mm,
because you've seen that double, you took it out, so you could have made quadruple, right? But the
mm,
question is, by having a goal at the beginning, that'll be your guide to let you know when do I actually take my investment out. And I get that question often. Say, when does it make sense to actually take my money out? Well, if you have a goal, that'll be your guide as to how we're going to one adjust our strategy as we get closer to our goal, so that we can lock in any gains that we're making,
mhm.
but also making sure that we're not taking things out too early. We haven't reached our goal, which could limit the potential gain that we could have had we just let that money continue to sit and grow.
No, that makes sense. So when somebody comes and works with you, it's it doesn't sound cookie cutter at all. It's actually a plan
Yeah.
based off of where they are, where they're looking to go, aggressiveness, those kind of things, risk you mentioned also. So that is good for people because that's why we customize so many things to people. Like, I'm not a veteran, I don't have any children, but so many people are looking to move abroad that fall into these buckets and are asking these kinds of questions. And what we do is try to have a real consultation. Like, tell me who you are, where it is that I can help you, what your thought process
Exactly.
is now, and what it is that I know that can help massage this particular idea that you have. So that makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you this, because
RJ,
with the
RJ, there's one more thing I want to add to that,
Lord.
right? Because like you said, it's not a cookie cutter process and it does need to be tailored to their particular goals. And that's logically speaking, right? But then you have the emotional pill that also needs to be taken into account whenever we're building out any strategy. Okay, some people, would have a fit if they see their investments go really low, right? And then go really high and go really low. And they can't take that. So that'll kind of prompt them to remove their investments because they get nervous. Whereas others understand, that, trade-off between risk and reward so they can go up and down in their investments. So that's another thing that makes it a little bit more unique to the individual when it comes to investing, because it's not only hey, this is a system. You also have to take your emotions into account when we're now investing your money. So just wanted to add that.
Nah, it that let me ask you, because do you do like a fill in, like a questionnaire to understand, to build
Yeah.
a profile for the people? Because it sounds like really down, like, I mean, it makes sense because you're talking about a retirement plan, building generational wealth. So it's something that's really important to the person that is looking at it. But talk to me about the intake process that you go with to try to, like, at least pre-screen so that you're coming to the conversation with something that they can have immediate value with.
Good question. So two of the main things that we start out with are your data gathering sheets, where we're getting a complete picture of your current financial situation. So we're asking, what are your bills? How much do you pay in utilities? What's entertainment expenses look like for you? How much do you spend on, food and so on, right? So we're getting a good understanding of how you currently spend your money to help us build out our recommendation, and kind of tell you where, areas of improvement can be, right? Secondly, you are right on the dot. So we do a risk questionnaire, to tell us, okay, if this scenario occurred, for example, your stock portfolio lost 10%, are you going to now, sell all of your investments because you're nervous, or would you just continue to hold it out and wait until that stock, goes ahead and increases again? So you'll be surprised by, the various types of responses that we get, because some people understand that's what stocks do. They go up and down, and I just gotta ride that wave, and that's how I get the most amount of return. Whereas others, they get nervous when the stock market goes down and say, okay, what if it never goes up again and I lose all of my money? Ah. But if you know about investing, you kind of know that, obviously there are ways in which we can, strategically plan against that of a person losing all of their money. Um, but sometimes you have to kind of make your way into becoming more comfortable with how investing works before you can go full throttle and go as aggressive as, other investors. So, like I said, you were right on that. We do a risk questionnaire, but we also gather all of their current financial documents to see where they are for today. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's
Mhm.
good for the people, because it's not just some, everybody's getting this exact same cookie cutter
Right.
approach to who is you are. And I tell people, have some ownership in what this is, because the move abroad process and the move abroad journey, it's for you, it's for y'all, it's not for anybody else. And a lot of people, they go online and they see certain things, they see people moving abroad and having success, and they're basing their move abroad off of somebody else's content, off of somebody else's
Mhm.
positive experience, and not tailoring it back down to themselves. So it's good to be aligned with other experts that will consult with you and really devise a plan that actually works for you. Let me ask you this, because one of the biggest things, and I touched a little bit on it, that I'm getting is more people are starting to move abroad with their children. And that doesn't mean that they're always going to be going from the United States, that these kids can't go back to college in the United States. And they're looking at different ways to pretty much create a college fund by moving abroad. Because, I think when I went to school, it was $30,000 a year. let's call it $120,000 for a 4-year education at Morehouse, 2005 to
Mhm.
2009. I have no idea what it could be, 20 years later. I want to at least touch on that because some people are looking for this to be the way that they could actually create that college fund for their kids, or at least give them something at 18 that says, you may not want to go to college, but at least you have something to start your life.
There you go. There you go. I think a lot of times when people bring up investing for their children, the quick recommendation is, hey, 529 plans. If you're familiar, are you familiar with 529 plans,
I have
by the
heard
way?
of them, but without a child, I have only heard of them in passing.
Got it, got it, got it. So 529 plans are designed specifically for first through 12th or college expenses. So if you are not using the funds for college or through first through 12th grade, then you are not going to take advantage of the tax incentives that come with the 529 plan. So I always say you don't know what your child's going to want to do, once they become of age. So I usually recommend in what's called an UTMA account, UTMA, and
Okay.
that will allow you to invest in the market for your child. It allows them also the flexibility now to use that money for whatever they want to use it for. It can be for college, it can be for, helping them start a business, getting their first car, whatever it is. You have more flexibility if you don't lock it up geared specifically towards college. So, in regards to, moving abroad and how that comes into play is now you have these extra resources available for you to actually invest for your child. And like I said, mentioned earlier, time horizon is a big deal, right? Because as we get, here's why time horizon is such a big deal, right? Because as we get closer to your goal, if we started off aggressively investing, again, that means you're fluctuating in the market. We want to make sure that as we get closer to that goal, we're not fluctuating as much. We want to become a little bit more stable, again, to lock in those gains, but also not have the risk of the market's down. So now all of my money is down and I'm looking to retire, or my child's turning 18, but now their portfolio is a lot lower than it was last year, for example, right? So as we get closer to that goal, we're no longer taking on as much risk, right? We're still
Yeah.
getting some growth, but we don't want to take on as much risk because we want to just lock in those gains, and just now preserve whatever we've now, built up to at this point as we get, closer to that, whatever that goal is at that time.
No, that makes sense, and that not only where you are, but how do we help you get to there, and then like narrowing it down, tailoring it, even coming back to it should your goals or life thought process change. That is definitely going to be something that with moving abroad, people may have more space in their life for. Because like I said, when you're overworked, overwhelmed, everything's coming to you all at once. And what I tell people is when you do get that space back in your life to just be you, not what you do, not who you are to everybody else, but just be you. You get to have these things where it's like, okay, now I have peace and stability where now I can look into building something that leaves one, somebody something behind, or two, it allows me to live a better life while I'm here. I know you run into a lot of excuses about this though, and I'm gonna put the E word on it because an excuse is an excuse.
It
I
is.
don't have the time. I don't make enough money. We're talking about moving abroad that may free up some of these things, but how do you navigate and help these people navigate the excuses of not preparing for getting old?
I love this question. I always said the first step before we actually talk about the investment space is mindset, right? You have to have the right mindset in order to be able to properly invest and grow your money. Because if not, what happens is, I'm not going to be with you as your advisor every second of the day, right? So those choices that you make day to day financially are going to have a huge impact on what we're able to build and grow on the back end. If you're choosing to spend your money on Dunkin' Donuts, right, every morning, and choosing to spend your money on going out, with friends to brunch and whatever it is that we like to do, right? But
Mhm.
constantly, right? We're not saying that we can't enjoy our lives and have fun. There's got to be a balance there. But you have to now be able to have that control, that mental control to say, hey, I actually want to make sure I retire at, everybody wants to retire early. From what funds though, right? That's like, where's that money coming from?
There's the
So we gotta start, exactly, exactly. So we've got to start to put that away. But if you're choosing that, immediate gratification over the delayed gratification, that you got to fix that first before we can do anything. Again, moving abroad and now having access to more resources, it might take a while for you to get to a point to say, hey, actually, let me continue to live below my means, and so that I can now have that larger chunk of change to now go ahead and invest in my future. If not, you're just going to run into the same issues that you face in America, but now over abroad. So that's not fun. That's not fun.
do, do you watch
So now you're away
my
from family and
videos?
still facing the same challenges. I actually do
You must
sometimes,
watch
but
what
do
I
you say
say
that
to
already?
people.
Do you say that?
Because I'm like, you think that
Oh,
you
because
are who
yes.
you are no matter where you go in this world. So your
Hmm.
mindset in this entire process is going to be the make or break of whether or not you have success. And if you think that you are going to do what you do in America
Yeah.
just somewhere else, I tell people just stay there. Just stay. And it's multi-layered and you could almost apply it to
And
any
you got family and
particular
friends at
thing.
least.
Like seriously, because you have to change your mindset to get something different. Your goal and your way to go get towards that goal has to shift a little bit, and it can shift. And some of these things are it's a transformation. It's a multi-layer transformation. It's move abroad. It's physical. It's mental. It's spiritual. It's financial. It's the ability to reconnect with communities that we have forgotten how to do so. Like it's so many different things, but your mindset is going to either open or close you off from this. So, like I said, that's what I'm like, you must be watching, or like the energy is aligned, obviously, because you're saying the same things that I'm telling people on this
Absolutely.
channel every day. Um, Let me ask you, because you're back at home in the United States and things are interesting. Things are consistently getting even more interesting. And there are a number of things. Social Security is always been on the table, but it's even more on the table. And just the financial landscape of everything. Uh, how do you help navigate people through this and giving them real advice? Because the the stock market is going up. I think the US dollar lost 10% in value since last year. And it's just like I know there's other vehicles besides just stock market. And it's just how do you help them navigate that with what's going on in the United States? What mediums that you have to help them get to their goals, but still give them some peace of mind that I have a way out of this or through this.
That's a good question. It's really multi-layered because, like we said earlier, it depends on the client and their own goals as to how they want to invest that will make the most sense for them. So, for example, I have clients who, you know, are more concerned about preservation of capital than they are about growth. So those clients who, have over $1 million, for example, they're going to be more concerned with ESG investing, right? That's going to be more sustainable investing. They're going to be more cautious about the companies in which they're investing in compared to, the client who's just trying to grow their money and here's, this company is doing bad things, but it also has a great potential for growth. So they may say, hey, I'm still going to invest my money there because even though it doesn't align with my own values, I am very concerned about my retirement growth. And I know that by
Mhm.
investing in that company, there's a high likelihood that I can get the most gain for my investment. So again, two different perspectives on how they want to invest their money. Um, but as we all know, the more resources that we have, the more control we can have as to how we're giving our power out, right? Because we're no longer asking, and looking for other companies to grow to help us when we're the millionaire, right? Because when you're the millionaire, you're saying, okay, these companies actually want my money, right? I have more control
Yeah.
over where I'm investing because I'm not looking to necessarily be a part of their growth. I'm just looking to, secure my money. But again, I want to make sure that my money, my nest egg is not, how can I say, put towards things that are not for the greater good. So that becomes more of their focus as they, have more assets, whereas those who are looking to build their assets are more so focused on the gain rather than the social good. Now, granted, you do have some clients who are concerned about the social good and are in their growth phase, which is great.
Hmm.
We just have to invest a little bit more strategically to make sure that it aligns with their values. But it is a, a unique process for everyone. So with, everything that's going on in America, of course, everybody's got their thoughts, but like you said, the stock market, it is performing really great right now. Even though the dollar is losing its strength. So that should be even more of a reason why we need to get your money out of those high yield savings accounts, right? And putting
Yeah.
thousands of dollars there. But now start to actually put money towards your investment strategy because while that dollar is losing money, the stock market is gaining money. So if you just put it in another place, you had the potential to have that dollar, grow, as opposed to just kind of letting the dollar sit and kind of lose value. Um, it really just depends on where you're putting it, right? We just want to make sure we're putting it in the right place, and that makes all the difference.
That makes sense. And you said where you're putting it in, different places. Is cryptocurrency something that you guys help people navigate? Because I know people are coming probably to you and asking, like, "Well, I'm really hearing about Bitcoin, or I'm hearing about this." Never mind, like the meme coins. I'm talking about like some of the bigger, larger, structured, which seems like structured coins. Do you help people navigate the cryptocurrency space?
Yes, and I'm actually still learning how to be an expert on that myself. I'll be very honest with you. I'm very familiar with traditional stock markets and ETFs and that whole nine. There are ways that you can invest in crypto through traditional markets, but then also you have your like, what is it, the wallet, right? Where you can go ahead and invest directly in the wallet. So that's a whole nother strategy there, I will say. But what crypto allows you to do, are you familiar with the term globalization, RJ?
Yes.
Okay, I would think so, right? So we're becoming a more globalized society altogether. And what globalization means is that, in the past, we didn't have as much communication with these other countries. Now,
Hmm.
through social media and, easier access to travel, we're now able to now communicate and have a closer tie with the countries, across the world. So with that, it makes sense to, develop a currency that allows you to now spend anywhere
Globally.
around the world without having that power. You've got like power constraints because now before you had to convert, exchange currency rates and do there's a lot of processing going on when you're now
Yep.
trying to spend currency from one area and another country. So now with the power of crypto, they're making that a more universal form of currency. So I'll get that question asked a lot, is it too late to invest in crypto? Is it too 100,000 might seem like a lot today, but like we said, the power of the dollar is decreasing, right? So now I
Yep.
would rather have my money put in a place where one is going to align with the future of the societies as a whole, right? So the global
Hmm.
society, but also realizing that that $100,000 number is a lot today for you, but it will not be a lot, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years from now. The same way that, our parents used to buy houses back in the day and we thought, oh, that's so cheap and so forth. That's relative to your society that you're in as to what's cheap and what's expensive, right? So again, that $100,000 may seem
Listen,
like a lot to you now, but years from now, that's going to
your
grow
million.
exponentially, and you would have wished you got in today, right? Exactly, you would have wished you got in today. So I would say,
Corey,
as this
Corey,
now is a
Corey.
conversation, that should be a sign for you to get in. That should be a sign for you to get in, as opposed to just kind of continue to sit on the sideline. And it's easier said than how do I say? It is easier. It's not easier said than it's done because really what it is just putting a system in place. When I was younger, I would just go ahead and in the Robinhood at one moment, decided to do $100 a month into Bitcoin, right? That's all it's after that, it was automated, right? So it's not something I had to continue to check on and continue to look at and continue to do. It was that
Right.
one moment where I sat there and I said, hey, I'm going to do an automatic transfer from my checking account to this Bitcoin account, and then leave it there, and then from there you just kind of look back at it, a few months or a year from now, and you go, oh, this was working for me this whole time,
Yep.
because of that one moment where you set up that automated system. So systems are going to be a key point too, to say, hey, as long as our system is good, we should be able to continue to focus on our daily lives and focus on our careers without the hassle of feeling like you have to be a financial expert in order to build your wealth.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to bring this conversation to the light, because I know so many people are not confused, uneducated in regards to how to actually do this. The mindset is one thing, and leading people. You mentioned earlier, like there's no reason to open a door for people and not give them the tools they need to actually walk through the door. And these things are important. So it's like, okay, you're moving abroad, you're seeing people living these lives, but I know that some people are coming to me with their real life, and their conversations are like, I don't know how I'm going to retire. So I'm looking to go into a place where I don't speak the language, I don't know the culture, but I have to get out of here because I see people being able to survive, and I am not able, even though I don't know anything about it. So it's for the people that are watching this to take these opportunities, the opportunity to connect with somebody like Corey, the opportunity to come here and have conversations that are designed around the mindset that you are going to need to leave the US, but also what you need to leave in the US when you go to move abroad, and how to actually have this transformation. And I just wanted to give people the opportunity to at least know where they're going to see you and us the next time. We have a virtual relocation conference coming November 22nd. The early bird tickets are on sale now at moodtravelabroad.com. You're going to see myself. I'll be there speaking some general topics about moving abroad, as well as destination speakers, including Medellin, Cali, Santa Marta, Colombia, Panama, as well as Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and Cape Town, South Africa. We are also reaching back into my Philly community and bringing on Sonia, the student loan doctor. So many people are strapped with student loan debt, as well as looking for the opportunity to build wealth abroad. We're bringing these two experts into the conversation, as well as other topics, immigration visas, healthcare abroad, what all of this looks like. So you don't have to go piecing the thought process together. You just need to go to moodtravelabroad.com, grab your early bird ticket. It's only $65. It's a 1-day conference, but you get all of that and more included in your ticket pricing. Corey, I appreciate you carving out a little bit of time with me on a Friday
Of course.
afternoon, just to talk to the people and give them a heads up about who you are. You guys obviously got a lot of great information. She'll be bringing that information back and more to the conference. And then just for attending, I know that she's giving everybody a free consultation so they can start their wealth management, their wealth building process through her, get a customized plan to do so. So, thank you so much, Corey, for coming on. We will be talking soon, and make certain if you are watching this, wherever the replay is, share it with somebody that's looking to move abroad. I will be back next Monday, and you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.